What's up, everybody? Recording in progress means that we're live. Hello, come on in, welcome, sit down, grab a chair. Uh, Everybody, if you want to chat with us live, of course we're live, so go ahead and switch your chat setting to everyone, not just hosts and panelists, so we can get the banter going here. Welcome. It is Thursday, January 23rd, and today is the Product Lab. Product Lab, of course, is when we talk all manner of things that are coming out of Huntress in terms of product development. Today, as opposed to Tradecraft Tuesday, we get to brag about the Huntress products. That's why we're here, and that's why I have three esteemed co-hosts and colleagues here with me today that are all product managers. Myself, I'm Matt Kiley. I'm one of the product researchers for the ITDR product. I'm joined by Rich Mozaleski, who is the product manager of ITDR. So we work very closely together, of course. I'm also joined by our SAT product manager, Dima Kumetz, of course. And we have Thomas Reed here. Thomas is Thomas. You're on the Mac side of the house, but really you're product manager of EDR in general, right? But you are like
Yep,
the Mac guy. So you and Stuart work together all the time, of course. Um,
absolutely.
so
Yep.
hey, come on in, everybody, and let's yeah, we ditched the two slackers. So I don't know if it's obvious, but as the bosses are away, then the PMs and the product researchers will play, of course. So yes, today Chris and Kyle are not here today, but we decided to. We've got some big shoes to fill, but I brought some of the best to help fill those shoes. So yeah, but let's get the banter going. How's everybody doing? Where's everybody coming in from? Um, we'll talk a little bit today in our respective areas, but really, of course, the product lab is all about chatting with you. If you're here, odds are that you're interested in like what Huntress is developing. Odds are you're interested in learning how the products are built, right? So in return for your being here today, we've got some really cool like stats. We've got some roadmap stuff today. Actually, I could just switch it over to the agenda real quick. Straight out of the lab, of course, our segment when we talk about stuff that like the new bleeding edge of like all the stuff that's developing in the products, and then we'll go into each three. And I think we also it doesn't say on the agenda, but we have a section on SIM as
Hey
well.
Matt,
Yeah, yeah. What's up?
you're sharing our faces.
Oh, is that right? That's an interesting little
Mm.
error right there. Hold on.
Uh, while you're doing that, like Phil coming in from the future in New Zealand, where I believe it's 7 in the morning right now. So holy moly! Good morning to you, Phil, and good afternoon for all of our American friends. And yes, Kyle gives away swag, and we get to do the same, don't we?
Yeah, we do. So if you want to engage with us, if you want to ask us questions and chat with us and banter with us and call us names and stuff, at the end of the show, we're gonna pick like I don't know, like maybe one person. I don't know.
Two.
In the spirit of Kyle Hanselvin, I mean, none of this is scripted, of course. So we're gonna pick like somebody who I guess we get to be the king of the domain here and just decide whoever gets to be the court jester and get some swag or something like that. Can I get a confirmation that we're sharing the correct slides here?
I don't see them.
You are not.
One more time.
I
A
hear
three.
computers are hard.
Computers are hard. A three, a
There we
two, a
go.
one.
What's happening?
How about
There it
now?
is. Yep.
Hey.
Okay, awesome. Well, technical difficulties aside, here's the agenda today. We do have a little bit of everything today, a little bit on EDR, ITDR, SAT, straight out of the lab. Of course, I'll reiterate the whole thing I just said. Straight out of the lab is just like all the like bleeding edge stuff. And then we have a section on SIM as well. Anyway, enough of me blabbing. Let's get into it. But before that, we interrupt this product lab to bring you a very special news bulletin. Things move fast in cybersecurity, and if you haven't been paying attention, there was a bit of a fiasco with Fortigate recently. And so, in addition to a massive pre-authentication CVE against Fortigate devices, which itself is awful, right? There's also a massive credential dump that's now floating around. So even if you have patched your FortiGate devices, if the threat actors have your username and password, it doesn't really matter now, does it? So Rich is here to talk a little bit about what's going on because he knows what's going on a lot more than I do. So Rich, could you give us the lowdown on like what exactly is going down with the FortiGate dump?
Yeah, go ahead and you can build that out, Matt. Just cursory look. over the past 24 hours or so, obviously Fortigate has had multiple issues over the past several years. It looks like, based on research from Florian Roth and Kevin Beaumont, who are two awesome researchers in the community, it looks like from the 2022 9.8 CVE, RCE vulnerability that was out there for FortiGates, there have been credentials, IP addresses, VPN secrets that have been floating around now for several years. And so, what was it called? Belkin Group or something like that decided to very helpfully dump those, I believe, in the past week or so. So again, it looks like most of these creds are coming from the 2022 zero day that was out there. But just another reminder, if you're using FortiGate devices, even if you patched within a couple hours in 2022, someone may have gained access to your internal network. It's always a good idea to rotate creds. We're going to be just doing an outreach to all of our partners that have domains that appear on these lists. I linked Florian's LinkedIn post. You can find all the domains affected in there. They've been scrubbed of the actual credentials themselves. But just a reminder, like, it's great to patch, but if you were vulnerable for 5 minutes, that's 5 minutes that a threat actor could have exploited, your environment. So, all right, that's it.
My time as a red teamer was largely spent enumerating for external VPNs, finding credentials from previous breaches, and trying those credentials against those VPNs. So I didn't even really need a 0 day at that point. So yeah, good reminder. If you're running an externally facing VPN, take a good long look at the reasons why you're doing that. And if you absolutely have to, make sure you're enforcing MFA and rotate your creds if you suspect that they're in a breach somewhere. So lessons learned. Straight out of the lab. So let's talk about a little bit about what's going on with the Huntress products, right? Sound good? Yeah. I think up first, we got Thomas with the EDR, both Windows and Mac side of the house. So Thomas, what you got for me?
Yeah, so on the Windows side, I'm presenting for my Windows EDR colleague Nanad. We have some Windows Defender exclusion support that was recently released. This gives us all kinds of capabilities on the Windows side. You can see all of your exclusions through sort of a single pane of glass. I know that's a big important thing for a lot of MSPs, and so hopefully that'll be a nice thing to have. You can do audit or enforce. So enforce will actually remove any really risky exclusions. Like for example, if you exclude your entire C drive, not a good idea. You can also create exclusions on any level. So account, org, agent, you name it. Um, so lots of good stuff in there. If you've got questions, I don't know tons of details, but I can probably answer some. So next slide is the Mac. So on the Mac side, those of you who manage Macs, you're probably familiar with these obnoxious pop-ups that happen whenever you install something like the Huntress agent or what have you, asking you to approve this or do that. It's sort of Apple's philosophy. If you're using an MDM, there's a real easy way to avoid seeing any of that. But a lot of folks aren't using MDM. So we have designed this wizard that will help you to help whoever is sitting in front of the computer understand what needs to be done and how to do it. So we're going to be releasing that probably sometime next month for the public, and we will start doing some outreach to folks to make sure that they know where it is. For those of you on the call, there's a Huntress app in your applications folder. You just go in there and double click it, and if you have the wizard, you'll see it. Otherwise, it will just open and close.
Fantastic. Seeing a lot of love for that in the chat here. This is awesome. Wizard will be super hugely helpful. Clapping. Nice. That's, I mean, general sentiment. I'm no AI algorithm, but I think that general sentiment is pretty good there, Thomas. So sounds pretty cool. Does that wrap it for EDR? Any other one-off comments or anything like that? I love what I'm seeing over on EDR. I work with Johnny, the product researcher over on EDR, and Stewart, of course. And though I don't know a ton about Max, I mean, I've seen some of his research presentations, so it's always really interesting to see what's going on over in that space. Cool. Let's go ahead and move on to. Oh, we had a quick poll here, of course. Yes, I think we had a quick poll. There we go. Okay. If you have Max in your fleet, so everybody should be able to see the poll now. If you have Max in your fleet, how well do you know how to manage the Max? That's a really good question. So it's basically like, do you have an RMM or some kind of way to push out mass configs for config management or something like that? I pretend they don't exist. That's a good answer. It's probably what I would
We
put.
see all kinds of stuff with this, so I'm just curious.
Cool. Well, while we're waiting for the poll results to roll in, go ahead and move on to ITDR. So this is my area, my domain. So I believe Rich has a section later on some of the new product developments, right? So some of the new stuff that's coming out. So I'm going to let him talk about that. But in my realm, I am like Smog, and I am sitting now on an absolute mountain of gold when it comes to the data rolling in for ITDR. That's everything from what ITDR is catching in terms of like token theft, unwanted access attribute rule violations, credential thefts, adversary in the middle attacks. I'm now at the point where I've collected a ton of data, both on some of the systems that have already been rolling, so like unwanted access, and some of the newer stuff, right? So if you are interested, and with your permission, chat and my colleagues and co-hosts, I would like to bring you on a data-driven journey through what we're seeing in ITDR lately. And again, because you're kind of a trusted audience here, you guys are here for seeing how products are built and seeing how the company is built in public. In return for that trust, I want to show you some of the unredacted data, right? And so we're going to just let it all hang out here because there is some really interesting data coming out of ITDR. First up, for our recent release of Rogue App Early Access. So we rolled out an early access program for Rogue apps. So we're looking in ITDR, we're looking for OAuth applications that have been consented within a partner tenant, right? And so there is an attack surface associated with that. There's kind of we split it into kind of two areas, right? One is what we're calling traderware, and one is what we're calling stealthware. Traderware are applications that are not themselves evil, but they are often abused by threat actors during some kind of intrusion. So the rough analog here, if you're familiar with like living off the land or bring your own X, bring your own RMM, something like that, there's no real a rough equivalent, but like the closest thing I would say is like bring your own X. That's kind of like what that attack is. It's like an OAuth application that a threat actor installs during an intrusion. An example of this is like an email client that helps them organize their inboxes so they know when to strike in terms of like actually pulling off a financial attack, right? So that's traderware. On the other side of the house are applications that are specifically designed to be evil. We call these stealthware, right? And so imagine like an app that's built from the ground up by a threat actor, and it's called ... and it has the delegated permissions to access the inbox of one particular user, or maybe it's installed for everybody in the tenant, right? So that app was designed to be evil. So that is another side of the coin. The two things that we're fighting there: traderware, apps that are not themselves evil but are useful to attackers, and then apps that are actually evil. So far, for the Rogue Apps beta, or excuse me, the Rogue Apps early access program, we have enumerated, help me out, Rich, like I don't know how many tenants we have. We have the data.
450.
What's that?
450.
450 partner tenants. And we have the data now enumerated for all applications across all partners, but we're rolling out like signals and remediations to that 450, right? And so from the early data, as it's rolling in, we've got some very interesting insights. We've sent out 1,076 reports across all severities. In this case, we're only sending out the severity level for high. I don't think we've sent any out for critical at this point. And what we're doing here is, instead of the old system would kind of look at the grains of sand as they passed between the top section of the hourglass and the bottom section, we'd be trying to grab the events of applications as they're installed and consented in a particular tenant. But that was the old system. The new system is we look at the tenant itself and we say, show me all of the apps that you have installed right now. And we roll up all that data and attach it as the data for that particular tenant. And then every so often we resync to make sure that all of the apps are one-to-one. Like that is the record of all of the apps in the tenant, right? So we've been doing that, 450 tenants, 1,076 reports sent. The rejection rate so far, excluding anytime somebody rejected the report, but it was a manual remediation. Basically, they said, yeah, that actually looks evil, but I went ahead and took care of it outside of the portal. The rejection rate is at 1.15% so far. So is that enough data to be statistically significant? I want more. I will always be pushing to get more of this to make sure that that holds true. As an aside, when Christina Perry, who is one of the ThreatOps devs, and I did the preliminary research for this earlier, or it was last year, it was October of 2024, we found that about 10% of an 8,000 data set number, 8,000 tenants that we enumerated, about 10% had any one of these apps that you see on screen right now, right? So these apps are traitorware. These are, we know them by name. Threat intel supports that they are not themselves evil, but are often used in intrusions. They all have different like utility to attackers. EM client is the example I gave earlier of like an application that organizes your inboxes so you know when to strike as a threat actor. But Rclone is another really interesting one. That's one that allows you to do like a full backup of somebody's inbox. So they have different utility, right? But we have threat intel to support that these are like favored by threat actors, right? So we even have it broken down by application. So EM clients of the, I don't know, math in public here, but 1.51%, that's 6 instances when somebody told us, oh no, EM client is actually something we actually use, right? Out of the however many that we sent. Oh, is it 406 right there? Yeah. So that is, that's pretty telling, right? Like EM client is not specifically designed to be evil, but it's used overwhelmingly to do evil. And even in the 6 or so cases that we've seen so far where somebody said, no, I actually use EM client, it's still enough to put that on a list and say it's worth sending to the SOC and at least having them investigate, right? And as the system is designed, at that point, a partner could just say like, oh, just go ahead and suppress that. I actually use EM client. Don't worry about it. So, you know, the rest of all of the kind of huntress parts of the product still function. So that was Rogue Apps. So we're Rogue Apps is still in kind of early access. We're still hammering out the details, but the early results are promising. Here is the not so early data from Unwanted Access. So Unwanted Access, as opposed to Rogue Apps, which is relatively new, Unwanted Access, our capability has been around for since like we went GA in August of last year, I believe. So we've got like more than half a year of data to look at this point. To recap, just so we're all on the same page, Unwanted Access splits detection into kind of 2 classes. One is we look at detections where geography, the implied geography of the IP address is the relevant fact. And the other is we look at the implied either proxy or VPN, which is the relevant fact, right? The idea here is that if a threat actor is using a proxy or a VPN, the geography of that IP address is irrelevant almost 100% of the time, right? Conversely, if somebody is using an IP that does not have an associated proxy or VPN, we can usually trust that that geolocation, at least at the country level, is pretty accurate. So what that allows us to do is we can scrape all this data together. Like I said, I'm Smog sitting on a mountain of data, and we get to look at what I'm calling the hotbeds. What are the hotbeds? Well, the first hotbed that I have to show you is the rolling, I think it's from October of last year until now, the rolling mapped out incident reports, confirmed incident reports, where geography was the relevant fact. So we take all of the VPN and proxy stuff and we throw it out the window and we say just from the actual, if there is a geographical location that we can trust with that IP at the country level, where is it coming from? And what we find is that, interestingly enough, the United States is still running away with it in terms of where threat actor activity is coming from. Now, why might that be the case? Because there's a lot of data center infrastructure where a threat actor will just pay to spin up a DigitalOcean droplet, US East, something like that, and then run their attack from there. But you still see a couple of the colors are a little, maybe I could tune the colors to be a little more contrasting here, but like India looks like it's got kind of is a bit of a hotbed activity. Germany, France looks a little bit. Russia is kind of. It's funny to me because there was a time at Huntress where we had an array of detectors that were just like X country is bad. Let's signal on X country. And I made the argument at that point, okay, well, when you look at the data, then we should just say login from the United States is bad. Why wouldn't we just send an infection report from the United States? Exactly, because it's not a location is not bad. It is the location relative to the normal activity of everybody else. So unwanted access allows us to specify what is normal for you. If I see anything from outside of that location, when location is relevant, I'm going to signal on that. And so with 21,000 reports at a 6.5% false positive rate across all severities, I'd say, I mean, the data speaks for itself at this point, right? So that's our roll up of location anomalies. But what about the other side of the house? This is where our second quick poll comes into play, all right? And this is actually not a quick poll, it's a quiz. So I'm going to quiz you. There is a correct answer to this. I'm showing you a graph right now of the breakout by VPN/proxy for all of our observed confirmed infection reports, right? But I've blurred out the number one spot. So this is a provider of VPN, all right? Who can guess what is the top VPN and or proxy most commonly observed in confirmed incident reports at Huntress? We have this data now, and I bet it's more obvious than you think. But go ahead and answer the poll and see. I'll give everybody a quick second to answer the poll. Hint, it's not Hide My Ass VPN. That is correct. Hide My Ass is like 7th, I think. All right. Well, for anybody that answered Tor, you are incorrect. For anybody that answered NordVPN, you are correct. NordVPN accounts for 20-ish% of all of the confirmed incident reports and policy violations that we see. The other 4 in the top 5 are ExpressVPN, SurfEasy, TunnelBear, PIA.
And Matt, why do you think that is? You think people are using the free trials and all that stuff?
So we actually, Faith from our SOC did some research into this. So all the credit goes to her. I didn't do any of the research that kind of looked into why, because I had the same question, Dima. I was like, why would Nord is, I think there's like 2 reasons. Nord is extremely popular. I think like everybody has heard of Nord, right? If you've watched YouTube in the last 5 years, you've probably seen a NordVPN ad, right? Mm-hmm. The second reason is exactly what you said. Nord allows for free trials, and I want to say, don't quote me on this, but I want to say that they accept cryptocurrencies as payment. So, or you know what, don't actually quote me on that. I don't know if that one's true, but I know they give it a free trial, and I know they refund after the free trial is done. So, threat actors are cashing in on a free trial, running their attacks, and then stopping the trial before they actually have to pay. But that fact that I said about that possible fact that I said about cryptocurrency, that may or may not apply to Nord, but that applies to a lot of the other VPNs that we see. And so
confirmed.
Yeah. Mason Network, this one right here, is a very interesting proxy. It's a Web3 protocol where you can basically you put your IP on the blockchain basically, and you allow you run a program and it mines cryptocurrency in exchange for you giving your IP. You do some like natting thing and you allow your IP to be used by other people. Like no brainer for cyber criminals, right? Cryptocurrency allowing you to use somebody else's IP. You run your attacks and there you go. So there's some other very interesting like technological reasons why some of these are high on the list. But Nord takes the cake by a country mile here, 20%. And yeah, that's what I got for ITDR. So I can kick it over to Dima now for straight out of the lab. What's good with SAT?
All right, security awareness training goodies. So we are in beta for Teams notifications. Beta. I'm going to learn to stop using the term beta and call it early access.
I keep catching
The
myself doing that
reason,
too. Yeah.
yeah, we're pretty darn confident in the implementation. It's just that we're waiting for Microsoft's back and forth to get into the App Store. So now you gotta download the zip file and install it using group policy. If you are interested, email me dima.kumits@huntress.com. I'd be happy to flip it on for you. Um, and basically, this is the ability to get the hey, you're enrolled in a new assignment, reminders that you're past or that you've got something that you haven't done yet. All of those goodies that you get via email now coming in via Teams. And I'm with you, Chris. I am so beta, I guess. If we can go on to the next slide. The two other things I want to talk about are new episodes. We got AI hallucinations, which features the return of Josh, whose intern tries to figure out how to get around not paying attention to his coffee order, and AI tells her the wrong thing. Would definitely check that out. It's a fun one. And also adversary in the middle. So we're seeing it in ITDR all the time. We're detecting on it, we're alerting on it. And one, we want to make sure that our technologist friends don't have to always spend the time to explain everything to the end users. And in the near future, just be able to do a one-click, yep, assign the learner this episode, and that way they can understand like what they just went through and how to avoid it in the future.
I
If we
love
could go on.
the I love the adversary in the middle episode because specifically because it's so technically accurate to what an AITM attack actually looks like. So they consulted some of the researchers on staff to make sure that it looked good.
Yes, Matt spent a lot of time with us, so appreciate the help there, Matt. I'm also going to be playing the role of Chris Bisnet today and talk about two new SIM features. One is the smart filter details. So if you're curious about what we're not pulling in as just sort of noise that you're never going to be looking for in the actual SIM from a security perspective, you can now see that in the portal. And if we go next, uh, the sim team has also made it a lot simpler to search for stuff. So before you had to go and do the ESQL full from logs where username equals and write that in the proper syntax. And if we go on to the next slide, you can now just do a simple search where you just put in that username and it'll pull up that user's stuff up there. So making it just a whole lot simpler, especially if you have your like level ones, level twos trying to pull data out of it, where you don't want to have them trading all the time.
Very cool.
That's all I got.
Very cool. All right, sweet. So now we'll go a little bit into more detail across all the products. So I think we'll kick it back over to Thomas to talk about EDR. For anybody not aware, that is not a toy car. That is a real thing. I don't watch racing. I apologize to everybody on staff that thinks this is like super cool. I think it's very cool. I just don't have a single idea of what's actually going on. But I think this is like a Formula One. No, that's not a Formula One car. That's a Lamborghini, right?
Yeah.
If Kyle was here, he'd be like, "You idiot, Matt!" Like the whole argument is that we're not a Formula One car anyway. So yeah, this is like a real thing that's actually going down today, I think, or whatever.
Saturday. The race is
Saturday. Thank you.
apparently.
Saturday. Ah,
Very cool.
yeah, I don't watch racing either, but I love the car. So
Yeah. Anyway, kick it back over to Thomas. Thomas, what you got for EDR? Looks like we got some
yeah.
roadmap.
So we're gonna just talk a little bit about roadmap for both Mac and Windows. So for Mac, we have a pretty simple Q1. We're working a lot on health reporting, being able to observe the health of our endpoints and know what's going on with all of them. Um, and among other things, part of that is this installation wizard to help people get EDR fully configured. There's one thing I forgot to mention about the installation wizard. We are actually, or it's related to the installation wizard. We're going to be having bi-weekly Mac office hours So if you have Macs in your fleet, if you want to learn more about how to deploy, if you've got questions, any of that kind of stuff, we'll be sending out links to the office hours. And if you don't get one, I've dropped my email address in the chat a few times, so feel free to hit me up. The first office hours are going to be next week. It's going to be on the 30th at noon Eastern time. So then the other thing that we're going to be doing, we've been working on tamper protection on the Windows side. We're working on the same thing for Mac as well. So we're working on trying to get the first iteration of tamper protection out. It's possible that may be just starting to ship out, but not fully ready in Q1. It may slip into Q2 before everybody is seeing it. But we'll have more information for you guys about how that works and when it's going to be available soon. And then later on in the year, we've got a whole bunch of different MDM vendor integrations planned to make the installation process much smoother, as well as some other capabilities to improve our ability to detect and block Mac threats. Next slide, please. All right, on the Windows side, we've got some more stuff. Again, you'll see a theme here. We've got a lot of health check and observability stuff. We're trying to just make sure that we understand our fleet completely and that we can make sure everybody is successful. And this is across all platforms. We are also working on tamper protection on the Windows side. They are ahead of us on the Windows side, which most people who are on Macs are pretty used to that. But we are breathing down the necks of the Windows team here. And then there's some additional capabilities here that are coming to Windows. There are going to be some improvements to ransomware canaries, which sit on your system, and they can help us to alert you if something is tampering with those. Persistent foothold improvements. So footholds are just, how malware gets persistence on your machine. It's not really useful for malware to be on there unless it has some way to stay running. And then some new phishing detection capabilities. And then later on in the year, a lot more with capabilities, a lot more with tamper protection, and you may see Linux on there. This is still very early on for Linux, but it is in the plans. So
outstanding. I think it goes without saying, I think our legal team would love us to remind everybody that the roadmap, though we strive to actually meet these we strive to meet these deadlines, but who knows if, plus or minus a quarter or something like that. None of this is set in stone, but I think a lot of people are excited to see Linux. I think I got a question. Linux is in WSL. I think Linux is in like a discrete number of supported Linux-like operating systems. I'm not sure if WSL would be lumped into that, but like WSL is really usually just Ubuntu. So who knows? But we'll see. Cool. Okay, Rich, what you got for ITDR? I already covered some of the are we smashing hackers data kind of side of the house, but like what do we have for ITDR developments?
All right. Yeah, appreciate it, Matt. You can go ahead and give me the next slide. So real quick, just to recap some of our recent updates. For those partners that we have online, you can now toggle all VPNs as denied by default at the account level. So if you do not want any of those scary VPNs, Mason, hide my ass, at the account level, we give you the toggle option now within the ITDR dashboard to deny all VPNs by default. We also are displaying tenant health status. This is part of a series of improvements on greater visibility into tenant health for our partners. Another big update, we are now, this one goes solely out to the SIEM team. Any ITDR partner, regardless of whether or not they have our SIEM product or not, now gets access to all of your ITDR logs for up to a year. via the managed SIEM product. So you do not need a SIEM subscription at all. If you're curious about your ITDR logs, you just clicked on the managed SIEM button on the left nav, and you get them in there for free for an hour, for a year. So huge kudos to the SIEM team for doing that. Really awesome. We've got some improvements that have we've released for escalations, namely the ability to dismiss escalations. Something that's coming right around the corner is going to be configurability for escalation notifications, which has been a huge ask. So if you want to receive PSA tickets for every escalation, we will allow you to do that. If you don't want anything to do with escalations, we will allow you to do that. That's coming right around the corner as well. Rogue Apps, as Matt talked about, is in early access, and we are intending, we've got a couple improvements left to merge, and then we're going to start rolling that out to all of our tenants within the next week or so. So there've been a lot of partners and customers asking for access to it. We're just going to start mass deploying here in the next couple of weeks. And then we now display for accounts that have the appropriate licensing, we now display Microsoft Risky User Status in your ITDR dashboard. That's just going to be one of our first improvements for enhanced licensing. So P1, P2 licensing, in 2025, we're going to be providing some enhanced value for those licenses. All right, let's go on to the roadmap. Oh man, my animation didn't play here. Okay. Obviously, the theme for this is Google, and we are going to be introducing early access for Google Workspace in Q2. We will definitely want partners with Google Workspace tenants to participate in that. But if you have Google Workspace tenants, please be very vocal in our feedback channel with what you want to see from ITDR for Google Workspace. In Q3, we will be releasing our unwanted access capability for Google. So that's the big news. Beyond that, we're not forgetting about our Microsoft environments. Shadow Workflows is a revamp of how we're handling malicious inbox rules. We're going to add some detections in there for malicious phishing campaigns and for data exfiltration as well. And then also in Q1, we're going to go into general availability for Rogue Apps. Also in Q2, we'll go GA with Shadow Workflows. And then in Q3, as I mentioned before, we'll have our Google Workspace general availability, as well as evasive behaviors, which is our fourth capability for ITDR. And I believe that captures all of our major highlights. So that's top level things. There are dozens of things that we've got working in the background as well. And please do continue to utilize feedback.huntress.com, and we'll be keeping things up to date there.
And Rich, you got a question in chat about whether folks should be reaching out to their account rep to get in the Google Workspace early access.
Not yet. We are going to be providing, much like we did for Rogue Apps, we're going to be providing a link to sign up so that we don't have to get people emailing their account reps and maybe dropping some partners. So we'll be providing a link here in the next month or two when we're ready to start taking early access signups.
I might be biased. I recognize that. I think the ITDR product is pretty cool. I remain optimistic about it. I mean, obviously, I have to because I'm leading the research for it. So if I wasn't optimistic about my own product, that would probably be an issue. But I remain optimistic. It has come a long way, and I love the direction that it's going. And I hope the data from earlier kind of really illustrates that like ITDR is extremely effective. Especially when you compare it to like the performance rate of the earlier iterations of the product. We took a look at it and we say, this could be much better. Let's make it better. So we kind of invented the future. We got to the future now, and it's very performance. I would love to hear everybody else's like sentiment about it. Is it easy to work with? Is it performance? Are you enjoying it? But yeah, I love the ITDR product, and I love to see where it's going.
Yeah, and Matt, I'll just get to some of the questions. So Phil had asked, is ITDR monitoring near real time, or does it poll each tenant on a schedule with tenant health? It might be nice to see last contacted. The intent there is that we will create an escalation whenever a tenant becomes enters an unhealthy state. That happens very, very rarely. It's mostly an onboarding issue. But especially in that onboarding 5 minutes to 24 hours, depending on how Microsoft feels that day. We want to make sure that we're being very responsive and alerting you, the partner, when, hey, this step failed, we need you to do X, Y, or Z. So the intent with tenant health is that, yeah, we're going to display it in the dashboard, but also if there are any issues, we will, at a minimum, generate like an escalation for you. All right, I think I answered the early access question. Chat transcripts, Cody, I think, do we have a recording or a transcript that we provide? No, Cody. We'll get back to you on that.
We will. So up next is SAT, and Deem has asked me to relinquish control so he can drive for this one. So because I have seen what he's about to present, and it's really, really cool. So I want to stand out of the way for this. So Dima, all yours. Take him home.
All right, thank you. 1 second. I'm going to start off with slides and then do an actual live demo from prototypes because heck yeah, we got cool stuff to share. So we will be talking about simulations, but first, just a quick poll. Do you currently have an ongoing security awareness training program? And I'm really curious if you're even if you're not using us, whether you have a program or if it's an annual or nothing. Right. We'll run that for another sec. Okay. Well, Cody, if we can get results out. Awesome. Nice to see a dead even split between using Huntress Sat and different product. 7% of people do annual and 12% no program whatsoever. All right, good to know. Definitely would love for folks to check out what we're doing here, but let's get straight into what we're delivering this quarter. So I'll be doing a demo of the first simulation that we're building, but other stuff that we're doing, we've already built out the leaderboards. We are adding achievements, which we're calling stickers rather than badges, just to stick to the curricular theme. Manager notifications for somebody having phishing compromise, and or if they then don't do the phishing defense coaching, that is already in development and moving along very quickly. This is so you can have that in the moment conversation if you want to have it with the learner rather than waiting for the report to come in. Outlook report phishing button. If you've gotten used to perhaps know before some of the other products that have a custom button and don't want to change the Outlook built-in button to ours, but would rather have a second button, this is something that we're going to be releasing. And to the question in chat, yes, it will work with new Outlook. That's exactly what we're going for. And then phishing defense coaching for PDF and attachments and some UX improvements. Looking forward to the rest of the year. So we are going to be doing some work in Q2 on managed phishing, which is going to be more of a regional focus. So we make sure that our Canadian friends get emails from Timmy's and not from American institutions, and same thing for Australians and the folks we have in the UK. In terms of Google, you heard Rich talk about how we're adding support for that in ITDR. Well, in SAT World, we already support synchronizing with Google, but we don't have API insertion, nor do we have a report button. That is coming in Q2. And we're going to, of course, iterate further on the simulations. And last but not least, for the second half of the year, these are again kind of cloudy, but things that we think we're going to be doing, benchmarking and Microsoft Office style phishing attachments with documents and perhaps even spreadsheets. So with that at the deck and move into Figma and do a quick overview of what we're doing in terms of simulations. Now, mind you, this is within Figma, not actually coded, but it is something that we're looking for your feedback on, and that we also be posting a link at the end of this. Would love to get feedback from your actual learners. So we are already working on an episode on OSINT, or open source intel. That's going to be featured in about a month. And what we're thinking here is, after you watch the episode and get through the educational portion, like, ask the question of, hey, do you want to practice some of this and try to see what it would look like from the other side of the screen as a hacker? So you come in, you're told, hey, you can earn up to 100 points on the leaderboard and rank up, and you'll earn an achievement for doing this. Now, a little bit of an intro of what OSINT is, and that the simulation puts you in the role of a hacker preparing to launch a targeted attack. And your mission. You are a lowly hacker looking to make a buck in as little time as possible. You just heard that Professor Wade got a grant for $5,000. And I don't know about you, but if I was a lowly hacker looking to make a buck, $5,000 sounds pretty nice. So we continue here. We start off with Dee Dee telling us that, hey, gathering intel for public searches is the first step in your journey. You're going to want to get enough info to target your Professor Wade character and get IT to give you access to his email. Once you've collected enough info, you're going to use this burner phone to make the call. So moving forward, you got 5 minutes to go. I don't know about y'all, but 5 minutes for $5,000 sounds like a really great salary. I would take that money any day. All right, what are our sources? Let's start off with the IT knowledge base. Universities, IT departments always overshare stuff. I don't know, Matt, you think probably we got a college sophomore who's running the help desk department for 20 bucks an hour? Sounds about right to me. So we go to the knowledge base. You've got your your full listing of what the questions are going to be in terms of what the IT department is going to ask you on. Yeah, I would never publish this publicly, but again, if you're at the university and you're just trying to make things more efficient, this might seem like a good idea. Let's move on to the dark web. Anybody see a pattern here in the passwords? And by the way, Dee Dee's here on the left telling you, like, the dark web is a great place to figure out what people are thinking. Aloha, Luau Legend, Hawaii Winter 2016. We've definitely got a theme here. And then let's look at the Bob Talk Social. Man, Professor Wade is really into publicly oversharing stuff like how old he is, his high school mascot, the Bulldogs, that the dog's name is Tinkerbell, even information about favorite band. Great stuff that you can pull in for verification. Lastly, let's look at the department website, because most universities have this. Oh, look, we know when his office hours are and when he's going to be lecturing. Cool. Let's make the call. We got a choice of when to make the call. Now we're still working through this one. We've got a lively debate going as to whether the call will happen best to be done right before the lecture or during a lecture. My argument is that during the lecture, you're logged in and you're probably presenting stuff. and an IT admin is going to spot that and go, something feels suspicious. So let's make the call 10 minutes before the lecture. Ring, ring. Hey, Rob, I need to reset my password. I don't have much time before my next class. I need to quickly get access because I'm presenting in 10 minutes. Can you please help me? We remember the email address from before. Question about your high school mascot. We all remember that was the Bulldogs. And date of birth. Well, we saw the 40 revolutions around the sun on January 3rd, 2025. 40 revolutions. So obviously that's the 1985. And let's figure out one last one. Great. All right, we got our temporary password. No, none of you would actually ever do this in the real world. I'm sure you would all require a callback to a known phone number, but now we've got this temporary password. Let's make some cash. So now you see the bad actor sending an email to the prize committee saying, sorry for the change, but I'm closing my bank account. Here's the new details. And no problem, Dr. Wade. And that's the end of this demo. So I don't think there's much that's happened in chat here. But if, Cody, if we could do the next poll question. Curious to get y'all's reply here. Like, would you actually send this out to your learners? Do you think that they would be excited about this or overwhelmed? I've talked to some partners who are like, yo, I want this for my level 1 techs right now because they need to start thinking like a hacker. Let's
It's
see.
just it's wild to me. That is a beat for beat like red team engagement into a business email compromise scenario that was made extremely accessible and understandable by just like instructional design and graphical representation. It's just it's really cool. I understand why some people would be like, "Ooh, I don't know, like maybe my more technical staff, but like I don't know if some of my level ones." I would send this out to everybody. I mean, like that is a very illustrative example of the simplicity involved in like running a red team engagement, which is really just a simulation of the real thing into a business email compromise. So, like I said, I had seen this before and I was floored when I saw it the first time. And now that I've seen it again, I'm like, this is so cool.
Loving the comments in the chat. No Bitcoin wallet address. Yep, I hear that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah,
Uh,
Bitcoin wallet address did you have it as a wiring to an external
I I just had
account?
big accounts. Yeah.
Yeah, wire to like an offshore account or a
Hmm.
Bitcoin wallet address or something like that. I mean, Bitcoin, you run the risk. I'm like dropping back into my red team days. You run the risk of having the person on the receiving end of that be like, "You've never dealt in cryptocurrency in your life. Why are you now starting?"
Hmm.
So, it's less risky to do a wire transaction at that point because wire transactions are a little more like in the day to day.
Yeah.
Or if your target it does use cryptocurrency, then like, you score one for
Yep.
the boys back home. But
Yeah, and a lot
cool,
of
excellent.
interesting feedback here that it might be good for as an optional thing for non-technical folks, and maybe no. Totally respect that. And before we get to more questions, I'm going to do two things or three things. One is also highlight that we're going to be trying to do one of these for every episode by end of year. So it's not just an OSINT, but we're going to be getting more like 10 to 12 a year if they're successful. Secondly, in terms of the poll questions, we got 42% saying only for more technical people, 31% optional for all but not required, and 27% required for every learner. Thank you all so much. That is super encouraging. Definitely helps us fuel the tanks for building this out. And lastly, I'm going to put a link to a an overview of this within Maze. If y'all want to grab that and show this to maybe one of your non-technical staff or somebody in your organization, definitely would love to have them go through this. And there's a couple of poll questions in there, but it really is that entire simulation and demo. All right. Well, with that, I think we got 6 minutes to go, Matt.
Yeah, 6 minutes to go. I think the final part of this, if I just do the screen share again real fast, or yeah, you can take it, Demon. That's fine. Last part of this was just like feedback. Anybody, if you have any feedback or questions that you already haven't put into the chat, I mean, we'd still love to hear it. Also, you could go to feedback.huntress.com. That's where we collect a lot of our customer feedback as well. But hey, thanks for coming through. Thanks for the questions and the engagement. These are always, in the spirit of Kyle and Chris, these are always a little off the cuff, and it definitely felt like that today. But I think that's the whole point of the product lab. We build in public. It's not always scripted and clean cut with nice even corners and even lines, but it always ends up being worthwhile, I think. And then I think we got like one last thing here. If we want to pick somebody out of the crowd here that we feel deserves to be granted some Huntress swag out of the Huntress swag vault. Examples of swag we've given out in the past are that little cool little portable. It's like a wood pellet stove, I think. We got that for the Winter Summit swag like 2 years ago. So it's like this little winterized.
It's desktop sized. It's
Yeah,
not like
it's not
giant
big.
one.
It's a small. It's like you can hold it in your hand.
Put on a picnic table and make some s'mores.
And then, of course, we got shirts. We've got all manner of things. So that's just example of stuff. So Rich Mazelewski, come on down. You have been selected to win that. No, we're not giving you. You work here, Rich. We just got swag for the summit. What do you want more? All right, so gents, I don't know. Who do you feel has been active in chat? Who has been asking the right questions? Who's been challenging our assumptions and challenging us to be better product managers and product researchers? Is anybody, how are we feeling here in terms of who's going to win?
My vote's for Chris Culligan. Not only good questions, but across the board using the Q&A feature. Thank you for that.
Okay. Somebody came, I won't say who they are, but somebody slid into the Q&A trying to tip the scales in their favor. I appreciate the creativity, but unfortunately that shouldn't be how it goes. But yes, Chris Culligan, I see Chris has 2 submitted questions that we answered live. So I think that to Chris Culligan go the spoils. So Chris will DM you. We'll reach out to you.
I think we got one more that we can do.
Oh, we got one more? Okay, fantastic. All right.
Thomas, Rich, you guys want to pick somebody?
Let's do Bruce. I see Bruce up and down the chat here providing helpful comments.
All right, let's see. Bruce No. That's do we have Bruce No? Is that confirmed the name there? I think we'll go ahead and pass out the swag to those 2 individuals. So we'll be in touch after the show. We've got the logs and everything, so we know where to find you. So enjoy the swag. Yeah, so Demon just put it in the chat there.
I'm gonna DM. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So have your people talk to our people. We'll make sure you get a voucher for the swag store. There's some cool stuff in there. And enjoy. So that's where we will end it. We got 3 minutes. Any final comments, gentlemen, before we call it here? Again, thanks for coming through. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for taking a ride through what it's like to build products at Huntress. We hope to see you next time. Until then, be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. Happy hacking. We will see you when we see you. Bye.